Okay, he said, will I take some questions? And I would say yes.
Dr. Paul is going to take a few questions. We've run a little bit longer than we thought, so it won't be quite as long. First, though, I have something I want to give him on behalf of the Ashe County chapter of the John Birch Society. This is a book called The Beast on the East River. It's about the United Nations. Even though my name is not on the cover of the book, I was instrumental in the research and production of it. And in the last chapter, we deal with some of your stands in Congress about the United Nations. So I hope you'll enjoy that.
I have a complicated position. Get out.
All right, Dr. Paul is going to answer a few questions, and then I understand he's going to be signing books of his own. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And where is that going to be? Out here? Okay. When we finish here, he will be signing books out there. After that, you folks will have a chance to network or come and get your books signed. Now, questions for Dr. Paul?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
There you go.
Hey, Dr. Paul, thanks for coming up here today. Like you said, there's a lot of people waking up to this message of liberty, and more and more people every day, especially a lot of young people. Nonetheless, there's still a large majority that haven't heard the message and don't necessarily understand the message at this point. So how do you suggest going about change at a smaller level when it's hard to not even seem like an extremist if you, let's say, know the Constitution, or, you know, let me not even mention decide that you're going to draw a line in the sand and stand up for the Constitution and protect your rights. You know, it's hard not to seem like an extremist because you just know the Constitution. So how would you recommend, you know, going about change, you know, with that as a problem?
Okay, and I get that question rather frequently, and there's no one answer for it, because what you might do might be different than what somebody else do. Everybody in this room might do something a little bit different. I think the most important thing for an individual is to know the message, to study and be well informed, which means in our history, what personal liberty means, what civil liberties means, what tolerance means, what our First Amendment really means, and study in Austrian economics and study why it's good not to have a central bank, and know these issues and know them well and become the expert on espousing these views. And then what you do with it will depend. It might be, like I thought mine was going to be very, very limited. When I first ran for Congress, I thought it was just to talk in the campaign, because when I told Carol I was going to run for Congress, I had a pretty nice medical practice. She said, well, what would you want to do that for? She says, that could be dangerous. And I said, oh, how long could it be dangerous? She said, well, you might get elected. So there is some danger when you, I'm sure there's people in here that have been campaigning, running for office, helping other people. So, yeah, I thought at first it was just a campaign and just to have a place to talk about economics. In the 70s, things were very bad then. I mean, but I think, of course, I'm anticipating they'll be worse in the 70s. So that was my forum that I used. Then I got elected, so I sort of limited to sticking with my congressional district and then had a broader audience. So I didn't know what the future would bring. I tried to keep studying and keep understanding and set a good record and just let the chips fall where they may. And one thing you have to remember is the goal. Don't look at the goal that, wow, there's a lot of people out there, 300 million people. How are we going to get half of those people to agree with it? You know, you don't have to worry about numbers. What you worry about are people who are interested in understanding, who are in leadership position, who can persuade people. You'd be surprised how many people go to vote and they don't even look at that. Those of us who are involved, we think, a lot of people think about this all the time. But they get their information superficially from these events like the media and all. But that's what you do. You participate in whatever you can. If you become a teacher or a writer or get in politics, precinct work, and there's just, but you have to do what you're comfortable with. And I think it's to each his own. You know, I'm very laissez-faire when it comes to what people should do, and the individual has to decide. The main thing, though, is I think people should really, really try to understand why this message works and how to explain it, and believe me, there'll be a job. I am also convinced on a personal, moral level that those of us who come to an understanding and have a conviction that this is truly a message that is valuable to our fellow man, to one's own self, to one's own family, and your neighborhood, it's in our interest. I don't do this, I don't feel like I don't sacrifice. I do it out of my own interest, the interest of my family. So once they do that, then I think people will go out and do the work and efforts necessary. But you've got to have hardcore beliefs and understanding, and then there'll be a job.
Other question?
Dr. Paul, it seems that there's a lot of members of the CFR in the House, both houses of Congress and all over Washington, and that their mission statement is the elimination of nation states. And we know that there's a big move on for a North American Union to eliminate the United States as a country and form Canada, Mexico, and the United States into one country, like the European Union, even on the government's own website, the SGP, with that flag on it. And I was wondering if with the dollar collapsing, if that could be a part, maybe it's being collapsed intentionally, to force a union and introduce the Amero as the currency.
I don't think that's true, but I don't know for sure it's not true either. A lot of people have proposed that as a possibility. I think the dollar is weak out of ineptness. They think they can hold this together because over these especially the last 35 years since we've had nothing behind our currency, a lot of people have made a lot of money if they can perpetuate it. The suggestion is well, maybe they're going to make more money if they have a collapse and they introduce this new money. I don't think they're ready for that. I think we've won a few battles against the North American Union. And some of the states, like Texas, have reversed some state resolutions about building highways. They've reversed the Trans-Texas corridor in other states. So the people, the work of many of you in here that have brought attention to the country about this has been helpful. But I don't say this by saying ignore what you said, but no, I do believe that there's a bunch that would like to see a North American Union and an America. But I don't think they say the dollar crisis could come any time now because there's no backing to our currency. If we do some really foolish things in the Middle East and that explodes, yes, there could be a collapse of the dollar. But I don't think the replacement is going to be the North American Union. I think that would be too much chaos for that to happen. I think if the North American Union comes, it'll be more like the gradualism of Europe. You know, they got the European Union together, but they didn't have one crisis, everybody came together. In this is a crisis, there may be more nationalistic spirit. But, of course, my position is very, very clear. I said we should be in the United Nations, but I don't support these international treaties. But I do believe in trade, because the founders were very clear, and economically speaking, we should be trades and friends with countries and get along with people. But we don't need to trade with countries. We don't need CAFTA and NAFTA and the WTO to serve special interests in order to trade with countries. And besides, it's totally unconstitutional because the Congress has a responsibility to deal with trade, not the executive branch, and certainly not international governments.